Yeah. Yes, you sell it.
All right.
Behind Richard.
All right, so here we go. We are talking. Good morning again, everybody. And this morning I am going to be talking about, what am I talking about? Beyond Good and Evil. Beyond Good and Evil. What on earth is that all about? So there's this thing that is said from time to time about there is no good, there is no evil. What is this all about? Because on the other hand, you've got, let's take the precepts. How about not to kill? How not to harbor ill will? And then we do the Meal-Gatha and we remember all sorts of things in the Meal-Gatha. So how does that actually make sense? I'm going to start with a story from the Pali Canon, which is the story of Angulimala. Many of you probably know that story. It is of somebody who had a spiritual practice and in a rather misled conversation, misleading kind of thing, he ended up, his teacher told him that he had to go and kill 1,000 people and string all their index fingers together on a thread around his neck. So off he was doing this. We had 999 of these. And Buddha was out in the village begging for food, but all of his other monks were indoors because they knew this was going on. And somebody saw the Buddha out walking and said, Buddha, come on in. Angulimala's in town. He's going to kill you. But it just carried on. So he was walking along, and this voice, this person approached him from behind with a knife and said, stop! He just gently turned around and said, I stopped a long time ago. So Angulimala was so impressed by that, he took the vows, robed, became a disciple, became a follower, and so what's going on there? What's good and evil there? Well, the important thing I think there is there's no judgment. Buddha was incredibly settled, and he just did not judge. We've got this comment that is a trope: judge the sinner, and not the sin. That's kind of what's going on here. Judge the sin and not the sinner. Thank you. That's more like what's going on. That's more like what's going on here.
Yeah.
Judge not, lest ye be judged. Let's go there. So, a lot of this distinction we hear about, it's well, it's the Mahayana, the great way. We're the people who really get it, and there is no good and evil in the Mahayana. It's just all those Theravadan people. Well, in the Mahayana, every month we receive the precepts. They look like this in our form, right? It's the same thing. And then Huineng, who was the sixth patriarch, one of my favorite lines is he said, I have double vision. I do not see my faults. I do not see the faults of others. I'm getting tongue-tied today. I see only my own faults, which is the same. It's not that there's not something to do here. We receive the precepts. We just don't judge others, which is a completely different frame. Shinran, who was the founder of Jodo Shinshu, one of the Pure Land sects, in his teachings, so the Pure Land, in very simple terms, there was a bodhisattva who made a vow that he would create this Pure Land, and anytime anybody took refuge in his name, Namo Mira Buddha, anytime anybody took refuge or in his name, just recited that, they would be reborn in the Pure Land. And the Pure Land wasn't a place of awakening, but it was a place of non-regression. And you were guaranteed that once you got to the Pure Land, you would wake up, you would become enlightened, you would become self-realized. So it's like, let's at least get everybody there, get that far away from suffering. So, and the story is that he cultivated his practice well enough that vow became reality. Pure Land's created, so now all you've got to do is say, Namo Amida Buddha, and you'll be reborn in the Pure Land. So Shinran taught that the vow is going to save all good people, all evil, it's the wrong way around again. The vow is designed to save all evil people. How much more so will it save good people? And his intention there was that good people are less likely to be saved by the vow than evil people. What is that about? The idea is, if we think the idea within the Pure Land is one of profound humility. If we think we can do the work ourselves, we are sorely mistaken. So anybody who accepts that they are a bundle of karma, they're doing bad things, they're just because that's their karmic history. They can't help it. Anybody who accepts that of themselves is guaranteed, if they say the vow, that they will be reborn in the Pure Land. But it's those people who think they can do good, they think they can earn their way. It doesn't work that way. Because there's ego in there that's getting in the way. So it's again this sense of judgment in here. Another thing that he said, this is again Shinran, this is all in there's a wonderful little book called the Tanisho, which was put together by one of his students after Shinran died to clarify a few things. And one of the things, there's a little conversation that this student of his recites in the Tanisho, where Shinran said to him, and it was talking about this topic, and he said to him, so would you do anything I asked you to do? He said, yes, of course I would, Master. Yes, of course I would. He said, well, would you do this Angulimala thing? Would you go out and kill 1,000 people if I told you? He said, no, I wouldn't. And he said, well, you see, the thing is, you're basically bound by your karma. Whether you do this or you don't do this is a result of the karma that lands in this physical form. So don't judge what's good and what's evil. Just accept this karma. Now, there was another problem that arose out of that. There were a bunch of people saying, oh, this is great. That means I can go around and steal and beat people up and do all sorts of horrible things, because that means I'm guaranteed, if I say Namo Amida Buddha, I'll be born in the Pure Land. You don't know. That doesn't work. It doesn't abdicate. It doesn't absolve you of responsibility. It doesn't absolve you of free will, but it's a statement of direction. So what I take from all of this is, firstly, the idea of there is no good and there is no evil is kind of a misleading comment in the context of Buddhism, because the more important comment has to do with karma, because good and evil are a judgment, but for us, but our karma is our history. And so if we take, and we'll use, instead of saying good and evil, we'll just say negative and positive. If we do skillful positive actions, that will move karma in the right direction. And if we take negative or unskillful actions, it'll move it in a direction that leads to more suffering, less suffering versus more suffering. The other thing that many of you have heard me say this story before on Brother Shankara, who's a dear friend of mine, resident minister at the Vedanta Center here in town. He was hanging out with a bunch of his fellow ministers from out of town, and they had some kind of event, and somebody was late. And they were joking around a little bit, and Brother Shankara said, there's no late and there's no early. And one of the other ministers said, no, I don't think that's right. Before realization, there is late and early. After realization, no late, no early. Now we can get tangled up in the words again, and should we use good and bad? Should we not? I mean, how do we describe this? But the point is that this practice, this tradition, points to the possibility of awakening, points to the possibility of waking up, points to the possibility of a state of being, if you will. That's not quite right, but for purposes of this conversation, a state of being that is beyond residing in this sack of skin and bones. This sack of skin and bones is still here, but that state of being, it kind of transcends that. And in that state of being, there's no late, there's no early, there's no good, there's no bad. There is flat out no karma being caused. That state of being is beyond karmic cause and effect. But for those of us who aren't there, we are bound by a karma. There is good karma, there is bad karma, positive and negative. And there are those things in the world that would feel good and bad, if you want to use those kind of descriptors. But the point is to go back to, I have double vision. I see only my own faults. I don't see the faults of others. So there's two elements here. There's before and after realization. And then there is the not judging externally, but just accepting responsibility for what you have control of, which is this, where your intention can land. So what does that mean? What do we do with this? In the Lotus Sutra, I think it's Medicine King Bodhisattva is the first chapter where this happens. They enter all these, flowers falling from the sky and people floating all over the place, and it's just beautiful and kaleidoscopic. And one of these Buddhas shows up, and he enters the samadhi of many bodies. And then another one does this, and then in the next chapter it happens again. And the third time it's Avalokiteshvara, and Avalokiteshvara is the Bodhisattva of compassion. Just eyes and ears, seeing, hearing the suffering of the world. And that, to me, if you think about assuming many forms, that's exactly what Bodhisattva, that's exactly what Avalokiteshvara does. Shows up for somebody exactly where they are, exactly what they need them to be. So it is a place of just boundless, selfless love, where there is no seeing the faults of others, there is only seeing the suffering of others and assuming whatever form is appropriate to help relieve the suffering of others. Now, for us who can't assume different physical forms, or at least I can't, I don't know about any of the rest of you, it's kind of a limited vow, but it is directionally, I think, what this points at for me. It's leaving that question behind, coming back to, but what there really is there is suffering and there is karma. And as long as I'm here, I can show up in a way that hopefully will help relieve suffering. And this is unpacking all of that stuff we think of as good and evil, putting it in a different place. So that's what I have today, and I'm going to push stop.